Hey guys, Chris here. In this video, we are finding out whether driving on snow-covered roads or on wet roads yields the highest consumption in an EV. This is a question I've been curious about through the whole winter, and in today's video, we are going to answer that exact question. This is a two-part video where part one was filmed last week and the video was dropped yesterday on my channel. So you want to watch that video before you watch this video. So last week I filmed when it was minus 3 degrees Celsius and we had snow covered roads. Today it is milder, plus 3 degrees Celsius and wet roads. So the big question is, what will yield a higher consumption? Colder weather with snow covered roads or wet weather with milder temperatures? People argue that the wet roads will yield a higher rolling resistance, while other people say that the cold weather, will demand more from the HVAC system. But today we are going to answer the question. Today we are also going the same route we did last week, which is 184 kilometers. We're starting here at Esso in Ramstadsletta, right outside of Oslo. We're going south to Drøbak and then east to Askim before turning left and going north to Lillestrøm and then west back to the starting point here. So we're just going to top up to, I don't know, maybe 80% stated charge, and then we will be on our way. Okay, we are emerging out of the Oslo Fjord tunnel here, and let's take a look at our consumption, because this is very interesting, guys. Look at this, 17.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Okay, so we have the same interior temperature as we did when I did this test last week in the video uploaded yesterday. 23 degrees Celsius, but our consumption is significantly less. I mean, I think it was 19.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers at this point, and this really surprises me. Okay, it's 5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's maybe not, because we've been in the tunnel underground, and oh shit, that's the wrong lane in the roundabout. Sorry guys, but yeah, 17.2, it keeps dropping. Okay, this is going to be a very, very interesting test. As it looks now, driving on wet roads is much more efficient than driving on snow. We have just passed Askim and our consumption is now 18.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We've been on the road for 1 hour and 14 minutes and done 93 kilometers. But what is interesting is that the consumption at 18.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers is actually 2 kilowatt hours less than we had thus far on the route last week in snowy weather. So that is very, very interesting. And look, it is quite wet outside. It's not raining, but the roads are wet everywhere we have been driving. So that is very, very interesting. We are now heading eastward here on the E18 motorway. And if you haven't seen my last video, this road will actually take you all the way to Stockholm. We're about 465 kilometers from Stockholm. So like maybe 5 or 6 hours on this road will take you to eastern Sweden. We are now approaching Lillestrøm, and our consumption, guys, has now dropped again to 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We have been on the road for just more than 2 hours, done 150 kilometers. But yeah, that consumption is, again, much lower than this section of the trip just last week when it was snowing. So I'm curious to see the final consumption when we get back to the starting point. We are now back here at our starting point in Esso Ramstadsletta. 185.5 kilometers was the total length of today's trip, which is about 300 meters longer than last week, and that is because I had to stop at a store to buy something to drink, and that was a small detour. But it really doesn't matter because the time we spent today was 18 minutes shorter than last week. 2 hours and 36 minutes total travel time gives us an average speed of about 71 kilometers an hour versus 64 kilometers an hour last week. And as I suspected last week when I filmed that video, that this week this video would yield a much higher average speed, and it did, because we don't have the snowy conditions where people are driving slower and also being stuck behind snow plows in traffic. We just didn't have that issue. Last week's consumption was 19.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and today with higher speed you would have thought that, well, that would, give us a penalty on the consumption, but today's consumption 17.0 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That is insane. I thought there was basically going to be no difference at all. I actually thought it was going to be more economical to drive on a dry, snowy surface, though we didn't have, all of the surfaces last week weren't dry, but we had snowy surfaces which were dry for most of the trip. Where we didn't have that, we had wet surfaces. So I really thought that the higher rolling resistance on wet roads would balance out the higher, drain on the HVAC system to heat up the cabin. But apparently not. Apparently the rolling resistance isn't that much higher on wet roads than it is on snow roads. Actually, it doesn't seem to be higher at all, because the consumption today is almost 3 kilowatt hours lower than it was last week. That is as clear cut as you can get it. There's a huge difference in driving on snow covered roads and on wet roads. Wet roads is much less of a drain on the car. It's much more economical to drive on wet roads than on snowy roads. So let's do some math to calculate our theoretical range. Last week it was 308 kilometers. So if we take the kilowatt hours of the battery, which is 64 kilowatt hours, divide that by the consumption 17, and then we have to subtract about 2% in heat loss, and then another 3% in this car not being be usable to drive below 3% state of charge. If you saw my winter range efficiency and charging test I did a few videos ago, driving this car under 3% state of charge is basically dangerous. So subtract 5% state of charge, giving us a theoretical range of 357 kilometers, which is about 50 kilometers more than we had last week. And that is quite impressive. So tomorrow's video, the next video will be the Norwegian high-speed run, and I scheduled that video tomorrow because hopefully we have some dry surfaces tomorrow to give this car the best conditions, and also even milder temperatures. It's 4 degrees Celsius outside now. So guys, that is clear cut, a very interesting test indeed, and I am surprised about the results. So let me know what you think about the results in the comment section down below. Did it go as you thought? Let me know if it did or if it didn't. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always guys, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.
Cloudless sky.